Welcome to JCATS, a program that seeks to introduce Japanese contextualized literature and ideas for use by missionaries and anyone that seeks to share the gospel with Japanese people.
日本人から聞く日本のキリスト教。
Okay, welcome to the show. John Robinson here, and today I'm with Pastor Kentaro Matsuda.
Hello.
Again, apologies, it's kind of an English pronunciation.
That's right.
Who is a pastor of Crossroads International Fellowship? Church?
International Church, yes.
Church. I should have. Crossroads International Church. And we are like within just very close to Skytree.
Right.
So that's fun. Anyway, Pastor Matsuda is involved with the RAC Network,
Rethinking Authentic Christianity Network, yes.
Thank you. Rethinking Authentic Christianity Network, which I believe the former name of the group actually had the word contextualization in the title, which is how I was originally introduced to Pastor Matsuda and his work. Would you mind then just really briefly sharing about RAC Network before we move into today's topic?
Okay. Actually, RAC Network is started by the guy named Mitsuo Fukuda. He's a theologian. But now he wants to what RAC Network is to think we need to rethink about what actual Christianity is. What is Christianity is all about, because when we receive Christianity in Japan, that's mostly from missionaries, so it's attached with Western culture mostly, or Korean culture, or whichever that the church got influenced from. But it has to be that we're Japanese, so we really need to think what Christianity is all about, and then we kind of has to contextualize, right, to our culture. So the RAC Network is kind of the group that thinking about that kind of issues and writing, sending mail magazines and publishing some books, right?
Yeah, and I've got a couple of the books from RAC Network, and I'll put the link in the show notes if I can figure out how to do that.
Okay.
But yeah, some really interesting, very contextualized stuff that I actually hope to go over in some future episodes. But what I wanted to talk to with Pastor Matsuda today is a topic that we had previously talked about, and I found it really interesting because all of us have done ministry in Japan are going to be familiar with this topic. And I want to preface it by telling you something that my friend Kai, who was on a few episodes ago to talk about Japanese church history, he and I were talking one time, and we talked about that infamous number of how Christianity in Japan is like less than 1% of the population. And something that Kai had mentioned was, if you look at updated numbers, some of the evangelical churches are slowly growing, and perhaps some of the older churches are slowly shrinking, but that overall the numbers, even though it's still very low, actually the recent data suggests that the numbers are going up a little bit. But even more important than that is that these numbers are probably artificially low and that's because they take into consideration church membership or church attendance. And what we're going to talk about today with Pastor Matsuda is the people who stop going to church. And if you've done ministry in church, I think that you probably have people in mind, as do I, who are very clearly still believing in Jesus and still very, have in a sense, a relationship with Christ, but for whatever reason no longer feel comfortable going to church or are unable to go to church by their schedules or some social situation that is sort of preventing them. Right. And so you have a heart for these people. Right. So I'll just turn it over to you for a minute, okay, and then whatever comes up.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah. I'm being a pastor in this church for right now it has been 16 years or so, but at the same time I was writing things on SNS, Facebook, and Twitter right now that mostly I'm using. I'm starting to know many people that are supposed to be a Christian, but they all say I am ichio Christian. That's sort of Christian. Mm-hmm. Like, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Then start to figure out all those people have a Christian faith, but at the same time they're not going to church. And I started to see lots of those people, especially on the SNS, and they are looking for people to talk with, the Christian friends, and talk about Bible or talk about Jesus. But, they kind of feel not really comfortable showing themselves as a Christian.
I see.
Right. And that's why I started to talk with those people, and I want to help them more and more. So, yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Great. So would you say that this group of people is more people who ceased going to church, or people who maybe never connected with a church in the first place?
I think they both exist. Most of the people I used to see were the people who left church. But now, recently, the last couple years especially, I started to see many people who became Christian by themselves. Oh. Not like nobody really told them. Uh-huh. None of their friends are Christian, but they started to see there's something true in the Bible. They started to read the Bible, and they became, they started to have faith, mm-hmm. but they don't know what to do because there's no church around, or
I see.
They're not really, they feel kind of worried going to church because they hear a lot about cult and stuff too, like Moonies and Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh yeah.
So they don't know what to do with the church, and some of them tried to go to church, and they felt uncomfortable. This is not what I read in the Bible. Oh, lots of those people, actually.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating, because I think that even right now in my own contacts, we have exactly those kinds of people. And even people who have kind of secretly let us know, like, I believe, but then they haven't found the place to connect.
Right.
And again, maybe just like you said, they don't know, is this the place to connect, or is this safe, or is that's interesting. The idea of how prevalent and how rightfully so the negative reputation of cults in Japan.
Right.
I mean, and then even just recently with Abe being assassinated by someone who was angry at a particular
Right.
cult. So that is interesting. So how do you find people on SNS who become Christians by themselves?
Actually, I become friend with them first, and then I figured out that's how they became Christian.
Oh, okay, so you actually, so it's almost like you're doing kind of friendship evangelism through SNS.
Yeah. Well, I've been writing something about Christianities and its faith and some thoughts that I have, and then those people started to find me, and got kind of started to be interested. And I have online meeting twice a month, and I'm starting to have more than that recently. But yeah, so those people started to join that meeting, and started to, we talk to each other, and sometimes they, surprisingly, I find out they became Christian by themselves.
Wow.
Well, some of them comes to our church too, but yeah.
So those guys tend to, how much are they doing like personal exploration of Christianity, and how much is it that they learned about it from someone else?
Let's see. When they, most of them are seeking information on the internet, and they read, those articles, or now they can watch lots of people's message on YouTube too, because after COVID things, lots of churches started to do that, showing that their message on the YouTube. So it seems like they don't have much problem with finding those things, but the more problem is finding right thing would be more of the problems.
Yeah, that does seem like I would imagine if I was trying to find out about something as serious and also varied as religion without being something of an insider,
Right.
I would have a very hard time finding what would be orthodox,
Right.
I guess. So it sounds like, in a sense, because of COVID and how that changed the landscape of ministry in Japan, there is a lot of opportunity
Yes.
to reach people
Right.
that maybe were either too busy or not comfortable, like entering a church,
Right.
something like that.
Right.
Okay. Wow. So you can, I guess, if you're really good with SNS, huh? That's the
Yeah, that's true.
that's the key.
And another people who I start to see is the people who kind of left church.
Okay.
That happened a lot during COVID too. Because lots of churches stood kind of closed, and they just showed on, their service on the internet. They're just watching it, so they have excuse to not going to the church,
Right.
or not really involved in the church anymore. And they start to find out, they start to see, well, maybe what's wrong with this? Why did I have to really go to church? And yeah, there are lots of those people too.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you said you meet with people a couple of times a month in groups online,
Right.
is that like with Zoom or something like that? Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so it's almost like it's kind of like a Zoom church type of
True. Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting, and I think it does. I mean, I think it fits here.
Right.
Well, especially because there are fewer local churches than there would be in other places that have traditionally more churches, right? So,
Right.
if you're comfortable going to church with your friend who happens to be your Zoom friend from another prefecture or something even,
Right.
then it would be very difficult
Right.
to do
Exactly.
in person.
Especially in the islands.
Oh wow.
There.
Wow, yeah.
Right.
That's true, because there's thousands and thousands of islands in Japan.
Right.
It's not just Honshu.
Right.
All right. So, how do you think missionaries? So, what I'm hearing, and I think is really exciting, is that this post-COVID, like online evangelism, in a sense,
Right.
whether that's through Zoom, through SNS, that seems to be a way that Japanese people are going to be able to reach other Japanese people more than missionaries reaching Japanese people. And why I say that is because I can speak pretty conversational Japanese, but I have a much more difficult time online,
Right.
reading and writing,
Right.
and then even just natural connecting and finding the right hashtags, even, all that stuff is so insider heavy, which I think is great, because I think eventually the Japanese church is going to reach Japan more than the missionary community. So fantastic. But with this podcast being trying to give missionaries fresh ways to reach people, how can missionaries adapt these kinds of concepts, do you think?
I see. The one thing is having a place like a regular church fits with those kind of people too. So making that kind of place will be one thing. It probably will be good help. Another things that what I'm kind of starting to focus on, and it's something that probably missionary can think about, is thinking church more organic way. So their word organic church, I don't know how much it is really spread among English speakers in the States, or in any other countries, but the Japanese people tends to kind of feel worries. They kind of don't want to involve in religious organization, or
Sure.
they're afraid of
Okay.
it, right? But
Yeah.
they want to have like communicate with the people, and they want to communicate with any the foreigners as well. They really want to be friend with the outside of Japan people too.
I see.
But so organic church is like it's closer to be like first century church. It was not really religious group, or they're meeting in the house. So maybe house church would be
house church style, or
Right.
cell church style, and then you've also got on the RAC Network website some one of the things that you can purchase would be instructional videos on the Tengai Nai
Right.
groups, which is a kind of organic church. Is that?
Let's see. That's the way to that will be help for organic church, but it is not really organic church thing itself. Tengai Nai means ten is upward, means heaven or God, right? And the outward, which means non-Christian people, the people who doesn't know Christ, and inward is like inside of people, like the Christians and your friends, families. So those things helps people to see how Christian think, and start to think as the loving God, loving ten, and loving others the outward people, people who doesn't know God yet, and loving family members and the Christians. So that's the way of thinking, and it's kind of introducing how to live as a Christian. And the organic church style, that's more to do with that. It is not organic church doesn't really do like service, the worship service or anything like that. Well, they can you can do that, but it is not the necessary.
I see.
It is more like reading Bible together, praying for each others. It is more about
Almost a Westerner might think of a home Bible study.
Probably.
When it is what it might look like in a sense.
True.
That's
Yeah, that's a lot like that.
I see.
And lots of groups are having meeting like that. And it might be hard to say that's a church for some people, but yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if that's part of the whole picture, the whole puzzle. So one of the things when I think about people who have either left church or find it difficult to step into church,
Right.
I wonder if part of the equation is the authority structure, which contextualization stuff here. In the West, the church is very like Roman Catholic and Protestant.
Right.
Stream is very legal, like the expressions of redemption, the church polity.
Right.
It's very legally oriented. Right?
True.
And so the church leadership is a heavy emphasis.
Right.
Whereas I think in some cases maybe people have difficulty with the way that church leadership expresses itself, whether that's a Japanese church or a missionary church.
Right.
But in these more organic churches, maybe people feel a little bit more, either safety or freedom of expression.
Right.
And I know there's a balance.
Yeah.
But I think you're right in the sense. Today, you have people who are really nervous about cults and leadership telling you to do bad things. And so perhaps more than in the past,
Right.
a soft touch.
Right. And another thing is, like, what's really important for them to focus on? It is, we tend to think like the church is the most important things, but it's not true. God is the most important things. And Christ is the relationship with God, the relationship with Christ. That's, that receiving Holy Spirit, living with them is the most important part. So, if they fit in a church, if they go to church and they feel, they can grow that way, well, that's fine. That's just, that's okay. But if some people doesn't really fit in that, well, then what would work for those people? They're looking for friendship. They really, looking opportunity to grow. They want to know more about Bible. In some case, they want somebody to pray with, and they don't even know how to pray to begin with. They need to be taught how to pray and the person to pray for each other. So we become friends with them, and meeting with them regularly. That could be a church. It is not just the Bible study. It's more to do with the relationship.
Yeah, well, that's I think that's pretty cool perspective. And so you're pastoring a church locally that uses both we're actually in the building now.
In here, yeah.
But you also have a Zoom setup.
Right.
And then aside from that, you're also meeting with these types of people
Right.
in another format.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. So I'm
Kind
doing both, and that some people just talking on any just having relationship on SNS, just messaging to each other, or there are many ways.
Do you have any recommendations for missionaries about how to interact with Japanese people on SNS? Or is it just really difficult without? Is the advice to just get good at Japanese? Is that kind of first?
Might be, and actually, yeah, it's a little bit difficult to do. I imagine that might be hard to do, but those people who are interested in learning foreign languages, they're always out there, and missionaries can help, to connect with those people. So then probably the best way is, that I can teach English, or that's. Yeah.
Well, there's like exchange groups, like learn Japanese, learn those types of things. I suppose people could
friendship can start that way.
Could also do, but that's exciting because now you can reach people when they're commuting to work, or when they're doing things that you wouldn't have had access to in the past.
Right.
And the fact that people are interested, I think, is really encouraging, because to me it's a big discouragement when I just think about the numbers and I keep thinking about that 1%, and then it sort of feels like, well, it doesn't matter what I do as a missionary because the number's not moving.
Right.
But to know that maybe the real number, or like a hidden number.
Yes, actually, according to Gallup, that's the company that kind of search for the numbers, the people. According to the Gallup, the Christian in Japan are like 8%.
Oh wow,
that's a lot of difference.
That's so much different than.
Of course, that probably includes the cults too.
Okay.
And Catholic and Protestant together. And that I don't know how much of them are Jehovah's Witnesses, all those different things. But still, that's a lot.
Oh, yeah. No, because when I think of old statistics that I've heard, when you lump everybody like that, I've heard something like 2%.
Oh, I
see. But to hear that it's actually
right.
moving up from there is, I think, it's really great. Well, I think that's probably some great stuff for us to think about for that topic. So thank you for your time.
Sure.
And we'll hope to talk again soon. Thanks a lot.
Exactly.